Servus Männer, it's Red Pill Germany again. Today Austria became the first European country that introduced a general jab as a response to the China bug. As you know, in Europe there are other rules in place in other countries already. For example, Italy and Greece, I think they have introduced jabs for the elderly. And Germany introduced a mandate for people working in the health industry. But this new law in Austria makes it mandatory now for all people living in Austria over the age of 18 years. In the beginning, they wanted to aim for everybody over the age of 5, but now it is over 18. In the early evening today, this was decided by the Nationalrat, that is how their parliament is called, and because the parliament building is under reconstruction right now, there is a temporary room being used in the Hofburg in Vienna right now, and this is where the vote took place also. The vote turned out in favor of the proposed bill with a really staggering majority of 137 yes votes versus just 33 parliamentarians opposing the bill. And the vast majority of those 33 are of course the Austrian Freedom Party FPÖ, with 30 seats in the Austrian parliament. I have read that the second chamber, that is the Bundesrat, the Federal Council, that is the representation of the federal states in Austria, they also still have to ratify this bill, and they haven't done so yet, but I think that is also just a formality. They will of course vote in favor of that too. The government and leading politicians also said that this will be strictly enforced, for example, during traffic checks and also during other routine checks by law enforcement. So everybody who hasn't received the jab, or jabs, plural I should say actually, yet doesn't have much time anymore to do so, or there is a fine of up to 3,600 euros if you are found guilty of refusing to let them pump this pharmaceutical product into your body. There are also almost no exceptions, only pregnant women, or people I should say, I guess, and people with other medical reasons, but we can forget about that I think, because it is the state who determines what is a valid medical reason, so that will be almost nothing I think. So in short, there are almost no exceptions. Everybody above the age of 18 will have to get that, or they face this pretty huge fine. That is 3,600 euros is a really good net monthly wage. In most cases, it would correspond to 2 average monthly wages, around that at least I think. So that is not a fine that you can easily afford, especially when it is due repeatedly and not for only yourself, like in the example of a family of 3 or 4 with only one person earning the money. Then you have to pay for 3 people, and that is probably already a large chunk of your annual income then already, and that will be due repeatedly. In other words, this fine is set so that the average family cannot buy their way out of it. Only the rich will have that option. And I guess in order to add insult to injury and to mock the people of Austria, these parliamentarians also decided on some sort of a jab lottery. That means every 10th person who gets it will probably get like 500 euro as a prize or something. And also towns that achieve a exceptionally high jab rate, they will also get financial support or some kind of a financial bonus aid package from the federal government. But that is of course, as we know, only taking people's money in order to mock them and to create fake and grotesque and destructive incentives for things that people in their right mind would under normal circumstances never do. Of course, also today, just like in previous weeks and months, Vienna was the scene of large protests and demonstrations. Protesters were engaged in a cat and mouse game with officers who tried to lure them into cattle traps. That means they tried to split off parts of the group and then surrounding them and not letting anyone in and out anymore. I guess that for a long time these activists and protesters could evade these traps, by spotting the preparations early and then all of a sudden changing course and then not running into these traps. But eventually, I think some of them got caught in the end nevertheless. So in the last weeks, there has been some hope, and some people were expecting that the government in Vienna might not go through with their plan to realize this bill, or that they would alter the bill, weakening, softening it before they would putting it to a vote. However, this turned out to be unfounded, and as we see now, the mandate became a reality. But we see, of course, that many people are pissed off, to say the least, in Austria, and we don't know yet how this will affect politics or the state of the country in the mid or long term. It is also interesting how Austrian politicians tried to justify what they did. They said, well, we first asked people kindly to do that, and as it turned out that they didn't do as we said, we had to force them in the end anyway. So that is what a liberal and free and open society looks like, huh? Some globalist elites are formulating demands, and then after a couple of months, if the people don't follow, then they will just force them using state power. And how is the situation like in Germany at the moment? Well, the government is also in favor of doing a very similar thing here in Germany. However, there is no bill, or there is no proposal even yet. I heard that they're working on one, but the government even refuses to write up such a proposal. They said that the parliamentarians should self-organize into like-minded groups with shared ideas and shared values and formulate these proposals by themselves. So it is not even orchestrated or organized by the factions and the parties, but it is the parliamentarians themselves that have to self-organize here. Yeah, let's see how long that takes. But don't get me wrong, this doesn't mean that it won't come eventually by April or March maybe, or it will take effect, or the fines are due from that moment on, something along those lines. I think it'll come later, but it will come. My guess is that the government, and especially our newly elected Chancellor Olaf Scholz, they don't want to take the blame. That is why they are refusing to write such a bill. They want to say, oh well, the parliament came up with that and the parliament decided on it. This bill did not come from our government. So they are already anticipating that there will be some fallout, that there will be some punishment in the next elections maybe, and nobody wants to burn their fingers on that one. So this hesitation on the side of our government, this fear, so to speak, is giving us in Germany a little more time, but I am very doubtful that it will save us from that in the end. The only scenario that I can see that is somewhat hopeful is that when this is over for the time being, that means April or May, when it gets warmer again in spring, and then another really important political problem comes up that people will forget about it, and when by then they didn't get this mandate through parliament, then maybe there is some vague hope that they won't do it anymore until autumn. But as I said, I highly doubt it. Let me know what you think about that in the comments down below and how it is going in your country right now. Take care, Servus, Kameraden.